Chapter 2670. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as she remembered what Miao Yi said earlier. She took a deep breath and walked towards Dmo Xian. Suddenly, there was a hubbub from outside the courtyard. Following that, she saw 20 to 30 forces who were staying at Qin Yu sect, about 50 over people, walking in from outside the courtyard. Yiqing Luo's footsteps halted as she frowned slightly, staring at the bunch of people who had fake smiles on their faces. In her mind, 4 words suddenly appeared, they came with ill intentions. This group of people indeed did not come with good intentions. Moreover, their target was clear and direct. After their gazes swept past Yiqing Luo, they all turned to look at Dmo Xian. One of the powerhouses in the Northern Waves continent, Qing family's patriarch smiled as he bowed to Dmo Xian, overlord. Following that, he cupped his fists towards Gui Wu, Master Gui Wu. The other 10 over people did the same. Gui Wu frowned as he stood up impatiently and left directly. He didn't give any face to these powerhouses' representatives. No one was annoyed. They were long used to Gui Wu's character. Anyway, their target wasn't Gui Wu. Overlord, I heard that you went to the Miao tribe leader's courtyard and almost fell into his trap. Fortunately, Overlord's strength is extraordinary and you saw through the Miao tribe leader's tricks. Instead, the Miao tribe leader was devoured by his goo insect. Finishing his words, Qing family's patriarch carefully looked at Dmo Xian's expression as he plucked up his courage and asked, Overlord shouldn't have fallen into the Miao clan leader's trap, right? This question made Yiqing Luo's heart thump fiercely. These people were probably here to test if Dmo Xian had been poisoned by the Miao clan's goo worm. Chu Wu Axayan had really spread the news of Dmo Xian being poisoned by the love goo worm. Otherwise, why would these people have the guts to test him? She immediately raised her eyes and looked at Dmo Xian. Now, Dmo Xian had lost all his memories regarding her. Then, regarding Miao Yi Xiong and Miao Rongrong's matters. Did he still remember? These people, when they asked if Dmo Xian's answer was slightly wrong, it would make this group of astute monkey-like representatives to detect some clues. Yiqing Luo wanted to interrupt. However, he was interrupted by a cold voice. I'm fine. The cold words were filled with majesty. There was something called an aura spreading out in the surroundings. For no reason, more than 50 people felt a chill run down their spines. The Qing family's patriarch swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The immense pressure was so great that he couldn't even stand steadily. However, he recalled the words that person had whispered in his ear. If he didn't follow that person's arrangements and push forward this drama, he absolutely wouldn't be able to live. At this moment, no matter how scared the Qing family patriarch was, he had to summon up his courage and continue to ask, Overlord, it's better to let the elders of the Miao tribe examine you. You are a noble person. If something happens to you in the northern continent and this news spreads out, how will the people of the northern continent behave? An ice-cold gaze instantly fell on the head of the Qing family. The head of the Qing clan shuddered, and his legs almost turned to jelly. We are just concerned about your health. Dmo Xian suddenly laughed. His thin, rosy lips curled into a cold, murderous arc. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes looked even more devilish at this moment. But, it made one's heart turn cold. Laughing so hard that the Qing family patriarch couldn't withstand this pressure. With a plop, he knelt down. Chapter 2671. Dmo Xian, Qing family's patriarch and the rest turned pale and broke out in cold sweat. How dare a puny Miao Yi Xiong scheme against me? Dmo Xian raised his eyebrows with a faint smile. Do you think that I haven't appeared in Nirvana realm for a long time and you can overturn the heavens? All the representatives had no more confidence at this moment. Qing family's patriarch was so scared that he almost cried out. DMO Xian, I'm stupid. I didn't mean it, I was just worried about DMO Xian. I shouldn't have speculated about DMO Xian's body, I know I'm wrong. DMO Xian curled his devilish eyes and sneered, I'm not interested to know whether it was intentional or not, but, you made me feel, very unhappy. The last 5 words. He spat them out almost word by word. It was like a voice from hell demanding for their lives. The representatives of the various superpowers were so shocked that they found it difficult to even breathe. Thump, thump, instantly, all the people kneeled on the ground. DMO Xian was indeed unhappy. From head to toe, it was obvious that he was unhappy. He still wanted to catch that woman who made his emotions restless, if that woman could really affect his emotions. Then he would kill her directly to get rid of any future troubles. This group of people actually came to disturb him. DMO Xian's eyes suddenly turned fierce and he swept his sleeves. Immediately, a powerful and majestic profound qi turned into a hurricane and in a split second, it had directly struck Qing family's patriarch. Qing family's patriarch let out a scream and flew out. The terrifying profound qi brought along a bone-piercing chill. The aftershock overturned the surrounding people who were kneeling down. Those people were scared out of their wits and knelt on the ground, kowtowing fiercely. DMO Xian's palm was powerful, but it didn't directly take Qing family's patriarch's life. Just that, Qing family's patriarch, even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. Qing family's patriarch spat out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were churning with a fishy sweetness and sharp pain. He stared at DMO Xian in disbelief. I'm the patriarch of Qing family. If you kill me, Qing family, Northern Waves continent, will not let you off. His words made the faces of the representatives of the surrounding forces that had followed him turn even paler. They hurriedly kept their distance from the Qing family. Could it be that the head of the Qing family had been beaten senseless? How dare he speak to the overlord in such a tone? Lord Dizun even dared to destroy the Northern Wave royal family and the Battle King's residence. Why would I be afraid of a small Qing family? Before coming, the representatives of these forces were indeed hoping for a fluke. If the overlord was really poisoned, they seized the opportunity to take the Dizun hostage and take away his power. But now, everyone could see that. The overlord who had such a strong aura, how could he have been poisoned? It's all that damn Qing family's patriarch's fault. He had instigated them to cause trouble for His Majesty. Everyone cursed Qing family's patriarch 100 times in their hearts. They couldn't wait for DMO Xian to flatten the Qing family. And then, let them off. I'm very curious. If I kill you, what will the Northern Waves continent do? Won't they let me off? DMO Xian smiled coldly. Immediately, he waved his palm again. That palm turned into a horrifying airwave. It fell straight on Qing family's patriarch's chest. Qing family's patriarch didn't even have time to scream. Chapter 2672. Even the representatives who were used to seeing bloodshed couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts. They were afraid that the next moment, the person who turned into minced meat would be them. That's right. The person in front of them. He was rumored to be a temperamental, decisive legend. The Overlord. In this Nirvana realm, no one could resist the Overlord if he wanted to kill anyone. What was wrong with their brains? They actually followed Qing family's patriarch to test the Overlord. Whether he was poisoned by the Miao tribe's venom. Such a powerful Overlord, how did he look like someone who was poisoned? The group of people knelt together as they trembled in fear, begging for DMO Xian's forgiveness. Suddenly, one of the representatives saw someone from the corner of his eyes. His eyes lit up as he crawled towards that direction. Miss Yi. Miss Yi, I beg you to persuade the Overlord, we We know we're wrong, we shouldn't be blinded by greed, everything is Qing family's patriarch's fault. When one of them knelt down and begged Yi Qing Luo. When the others saw this, they seemed to have found the only way out as they swarmed towards Yi Qing Luo. Miss Yi. I beg you to persuade the Overlord, as long as you speak, the Overlord will let us off. Even if we have to work like cows or horses, we will repay Miss Ye's kindness. These people were very clear. How much did the Overlord dote on Yi Luo? It was said that a lady's heart was the softest. As long as Yi Luo was willing to speak for them, the Overlord would definitely let them off for Yi Luo. Everyone treated Yi Qing Luo as their only hope. But no one noticed Yi Qing Luo's slightly pale face. Yi Qing Luo looked at the group of people in front of her as she resisted the urge to kick them all out. But at the same time, she couldn't help but to sneak a peek at Dmo Xian. The current Dmo Xian. He couldn't remember who she was. This group of people were begging her for help. If Dmo Xian made her lose her face on the spot, then he would draw a clear line between them. If this was spread out, she was already tired of being played with by the Overlord and was abandoned. This bit of gossip to her didn't matter at all. This was considered as the best outcome. But if someone with ulterior motives found out, then the consequences would be severe. How would Dmo Xian choose? It had been a long time since Yi Qing Luo was this anxious. But even after a long while, Dmo Xian did not open his mouth. He just used that pair of indifferent peach blossom eyes to stare at her unblinkingly. It was as if he wanted to see through her shell and into her soul. The voices of the representatives of the various factions pleading for leniency kept ringing in his ears. Yi Qing Luo pressed the area between her eyebrows, which was throbbing in pain, as she took a deep breath. Her charming eyes flickered with a calm glint as her voice remained calm. There's no use in begging me. You should be very clear that the Overlord's decision will not change because of anyone. When the last word fell, Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers unconsciously curled up a little. Miss Yi, you're different, you're different. The Overlord dotes on you so much. As long as you ask, he will definitely let us go. This was the only way for them to survive. These people naturally wouldn't give up just because of Yi Qing Luo's rejection. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips pursed as she opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. If it was a normal day, she might as well send them flying with a kick. She couldn't be bothered to listen to their pleas for help. But now it concerned Dmo Xian. Chapter 2673. Yi Qing Luo was still thinking of the best countermeasure in her mind. Suddenly, there was a sound of cold air being sucked in from the surrounding. Yi Qing Luo was stunned and seemed to have thought of something as she turned her head sideways. Sure enough, she saw a noble man dressed in a flowing purple robe walking over gracefully. As the man walked, the purple robe swayed with an overbearing pressure. It made the various powerhouses' representatives who were kneeling around Yi Qing Luo started to crawl to one side, opening up a path. The man's footsteps were slow and heavy. He walked all the way to Yi Qing Luo before he stopped. The familiar and elegant sandalwood scent seeped into Yi Qing Luo's nose. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. You. Her pink lips moved slightly as she nervously pursed them. Her enchanting eyes fell on the man's body without blinking. He suddenly walked over. What did he mean? Not allowing Yi Qing Luo to think too much, her shoulder was suddenly hooked firmly by a strong and powerful arm. Following that, Yi Qing Luo was pulled into a warm and broad embrace. The man's sandalwood scent assaulted her nostrils. It made Yi Qing Luo's heart palpitate non-stop. Beside her ear, the man's voice seemed to be soaked in wine. As long as you say it, I will definitely let them off. He laughed softly. His laughter was filled with infinite ridicule. Yiqing Luo's heart, which was beating faster because of his embrace, at this moment, returned to peace. Her petite body stiffened slightly as she raised her head from his embrace. She met with that pair of peach blossom eyes which were filled with foolishness. 4 pairs of eyes met. Dmo Xian's arms suddenly increased the strength as he tightened his grip on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. His voice became even lower. Why? Never thought that your lies to the outside world would be exposed in front of me. Yiqing Luo was stunned. He thought that this group of people would plead with her and persuade him. Just because she deliberately didn't have any bottom line and announced to the outside world that their relationship wasn't shallow. She obviously knew that he didn't remember her, which was why he did this. But Yiqing Luo's heart would still feel a throbbing pain which made her legs go weak for a moment. Dmo Xian's hand tightened around her, putting all of Yiqing Luo's weight on his body. What followed was his mocking laughter by her ear. What? Feeling guilty? Yiqing Luo's complexion paled by a few shades. The crowd by the side only saw the intimate interaction between Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. How could she feel that the atmosphere between the two of them was completely different from the sweet love they used to have? They felt that they had asked the right person. Immediately, all of them started to beg Yiqing Luo once again. Dmo Xian didn't even bother to look at them as his gaze was locked onto Yiqing Luo's face. His black pupils flashed with a gloomy light. Bit by bit, it flickered. This face, compared to the women who had tried to seduce him in the past, he was definitely not good-looking. However, it had an indescribable attraction to him. It made him do things that even he himself couldn't believe. For example, now, walking to her side and hugging her in his embrace. "Miss Yi, I'm begging you, please help us plead for leniency. We will do our best to repay you. This time Qing family's matter, we will also join hands to settle it and not let the overlord be affected at all." Those people were desperately begging for help. This was their only chance. They all wanted to live on. Chapter 2674. Not to let Dmo Xian be affected at all. Which meant they would join hands and push the blame of Qing family's patriarch's death onto herself. This was the best-case scenario. The current Dmo Xian was being corroded by the centrifugal worm. They didn't know if the centrifugal worm would cause Dmo Xian to have any other strange reactions. If Qing family really wanted to find Dmo Xian for Qing family's patriarch's death, the risk was too huge. It was hard to guarantee that Dmo Xian wouldn't be detected. She clenched her fingers but didn't shift her gaze away as she looked at him. Silence. The strange atmosphere lingered between the two of them. Everyone had finally recovered some rationality from the fear of death. They had also finally sensed the strange atmosphere. Momentarily, they all shut their mouths. Although they didn't speak. But their peripheral vision would occasionally glance at Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. They were all guessing in their hearts. This Yi Luo. The overlord had threatened to pamper her till she was out of control. Could it be that she quarreled with the overlord? Just as everyone was wondering if they should go and beg the overlord for help, a voice suddenly rang out. They saw the overlord suddenly hooking his arm around Yiqing Luo's slender waist as a teasing smile surfaced on his peerless face. "If Lil Luo personally pleads for you, I will naturally let you off." Not knowing why. The moment he saw Yiqing Luo, he wanted to call her name. Lil Luo, these 3 words, blurted out. But it didn't hinder him from continuing to act according to this young lady's script. When the 3 words Lil Luo, came out from Dmo Xian's mouth, Yiqing Luo's pupil subconsciously constricted. He still knew to call her Lil Luo. The man met Yiqing Luo's astonished gaze as his thin lips curled upwards. He was still smiling evilly. His slender fingers lifted the young lady's chin. He bent his head and got close to her. His voice was bewitching and alluring. "After all, you are this lord's beloved woman." He intentionally emphasized the word beloved. Others couldn't tell. But Yiqing Luo absolutely could tell. He was mocking her. Mocking her for overestimating herself. Yiqing Luo's fingers trembled. Then she lowered her head, avoiding Dmo Xian's oppressive gaze as she moved her lips, and, "Then I'll take it that you've let them off." This group of people had little to do with her. But after all, they were the representatives of the major powers from all over the world. If all of them died in Dmo Xian's hands. Even if they were afraid of Dmo Xian's strength. Dmo Xian's actions had incurred the wrath of the masses. It would more or less affect Dmo Xian. Before Miao Yi found a way to cure the goo, she could not allow Dmo Xian to appear in front of the public. Especially in front of those forces that had a grudge against the imperial palace. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo didn't even bother to take a look at Dmo Xian, but instead pulled away the hand that was wrapped around her waist. She looked at the people kneeling on the ground and said indifferently, "Still not going to scram?" Everyone was stunned as they quickly looked at Dmo Xian. When they realized that Dmo Xian wasn't even looking at them. One by one, they crawled up from the ground and ran out of the courtyard. Remember, Qing family's matter has nothing to do with the overlord, otherwise. Yiqing Luo didn't finish her sentence, but the threat in her tone was obvious. "Yes, yes. Miss Yi, we absolutely don't dare. Don't dare." Chapter 2675. Yiqing Luo calmly turned around and raised her eyes to look at Dmo Xian. Her lips curled into a sweet smile. "That's natural, after all, I'm your beloved woman." Dmo Xian's brows sunk suddenly. That mouth of his was quite sharp. She actually used the same words to block his words. His gaze went past Yiqing Luo, looking at those fleeing figures. A murderous intent flashed past his eyes. He didn't like the feeling of being controlled by others. Especially when it was controlled by this young lady who made him feel different. She wanted him to let those people go. Then he would not let them go. An evil smile overflowed from Dmo Xian's brows. He raised his hand and profound qi expanded, turning into billowing air waves as it shot out, just at this moment. A soft little hand suddenly pressed down on his arm. That hand was as soft as a ball of cotton. It looked like it had no strength at all. However, she forcefully pushed his hand back. The sudden surge of terrifying profound energy was actually suppressed by this little hand for no reason. Dmo Xian's entire body froze. His eyes were gloomy and his expression was getting colder and colder. From the corner of his eyes, he looked at his suppressed hand. Damn it! Who on earth was this young lady? How dare she provoke his prestige time and time again? Did she really treat herself as his beloved concubine? For this lord. Dmo Xian, who had just spat out these 3 words, had no chance to continue. His lips were ruthlessly sealed by a pair of warm lips. Yiqing Luo's one hand pressed on Dmo Xian's hand. The other hand hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck. Tiptoeing, bit by bit, she kissed him in the way that Dmo Xian once kissed her. The young lady's sweetness and fragrance made Dmo Xian unable to react in time to push her away. On the contrary, he felt a trace of a very familiar smell. So familiar that, in his mind, a faint silhouette appeared. As if before this, he had once kissed a lady so intimately. That silhouette gradually became clearer. Vaguely, he seemed to see a devastatingly beautiful face. Oh! Suddenly, Dmo Xian felt a sharp pain in his heart. The images in his mind suddenly dispersed. He suddenly pushed the girl in front of him away. His tall body staggered back a few steps. He stared at Yiqing Luo. as though he was looking at another person through Yiqing Luo. His body could not help but tremble. Ripples of light surged in his black peach blossom eyes, like tumbling whirlpools. Wave after wave, it was unstoppable. He tried to recall the outline he had just remembered. But the more he thought about it, his heart ached even more. This kind of pain was not physical pain. Instead, it was a soul-tearing pain. His body seemed to be unable to control itself. Xian. After Yiqing Luo was pushed away, looking at Dmo Xian in front of her, her heart felt as though it was being strangled by something unbearably tight. Qing Luo, come back. Miao Yi grabbed hold of Yiqing Luo's hand in time. The centrifugal venom is fighting with his consciousness. It should be that kiss of yours earlier which made his memories of you return. Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted, even a breath made her heart ache. Then what should we do? The Overlord's willpower will absolutely be able to withstand the centrifugal venom, don't worry. When Miao Yi said this sentence, she actually had no confidence in her heart. Towards the ancestors' forbidden venom. She didn't understand much. Chapter 2676. Yiqing Luo's heart wrenched. Especially when she saw Dmo Xian's red eyes, his facial features were slightly distorted due to the pain. Her heart skipped a beat. She had used up all her energy. Then she suppressed herself and rushed towards Dmo Xian. She knew that the closer she got to Dmo Xian, it would only cause him more pain. Through the centrifugal worm, I am even more certain that the Overlord's love for you is really. Miao Yi looked at Dmo Xian and struggled for a long time, unable to find an adjective. Finally, she spat out 4 words, no one can compare to him. Yes, no one could compare to him. No one could compare to Dmo Xian's love for Yiqing Luo. The centrifugal worm not only makes the Overlord forget about you, but also makes him more and more distant from you, and even has murderous intent towards you. And until now, although he is very cold towards you, but his subconscious, his body, even his soul, are all uncontrollably in love with you. Miao Yi sighed as she looked at Yiqing Luo. If it was anyone else, like me, or any other woman in this courtyard, who dared to use his name to show off, dare to get close to him, dare to touch him, would definitely be dismembered by the Overlord. Without hesitation. Miao Yi's words were definitely not a casual comforting remark. It was the real truth. The Overlord would absolutely not allow any woman to get close to him. Even Feng Ling, who was once spread by numerous people in Nirvana realm to be the future mistress of the Imperial Palace, was not allowed to get too close to Dmo Xian. Even if she got close, that was on account of the Imperial Palace's granny. It could be said. Over at Dmo Xian, who had forgotten about Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo was the first, so daring, to touch him, and even molest him as a stranger. Obviously, he would have a strong murderous intent towards Yiqing Luo. But it was because of Dmo Xian's love. Forcefully suppressed those murderous intents. This was enough to show how deep Dmo Xian's love for Yiqing Luo was. Og. Suddenly, Dmo Xian's pupils contracted. One hand clutching his heart, his body fell backwards, and just like that, he fell straight down. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo was horrified by what she saw, as a feeling of needles piercing densely into her heart, spreading to her limbs and bones. She couldn't hold back any longer. She shook off Miao Yi's hand and flew forward. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo hugged Dmo Xian's head with one hand as she looked at his extremely pale complexion, as her eyes turned red. Dmo Xian shut his eyes, and between his brows, there were several layers of wrinkles. Clearly, even though he had fainted, he was still suffering. Ah Xian what's the matter with him? Yiqing Luo speedily turned her head around and looked at Miao Yi. Miao Yi was also shocked by Dmo Xian's sudden fainting. Meeting with Yiqing Luo's pair of eyes which were filled with worry, he stammered, maybe it's because of resisting against the centrifugal force goo, exhausting all his energy. He'll be fine after a short rest. Yiqing Luo held Dmo Xian's hand tightly as she looked at Dmo Xian. Her reddened eyes turned even redder. Send the overlord back to his room to rest. Suddenly, a calm and deep voice was heard, revealing an unquestionable pressure. It was Ghost Marshal. Chapter 2677. Yiqing Luo was stunned as her gaze swiftly swept to the side. Sensing that the courtyard had already been sealed off by the Ghost Marshal's sex spirit formation, the Ghost Marshal's sex spirit formation started to tremble. Only then did she react. Master Gue Wu, thank you. Yiqing Luo took a look at Qiao Jin, carry him back to the room. Just now, the people from those forces had indeed fled very quickly. However, this did not mean that no one would be crowding around the courtyard, looking around. If not for the Ghost Marshal technique spirit formation, which had covered up everything that had happened in the courtyard, the Ghost Marshal technique would not have been able to see it. Just like the atmosphere between Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo earlier, Dmo Xian had already fainted. It would definitely set off a wave in the Nirvana realm. With the help of Qiao Jin. Very quickly, they returned to Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's room. Everyone could tell that earlier the battle between Dmo Xian and the centrifugal force worm had already made Yiqing Luo extremely worried. Naturally, he would not disturb the two of them. The two of them left the room one by one. The unconscious Dmo Xian was restless. To be more precise, he was still fighting against the goo worm in his body while he was unconscious. Yiqing Luo's heart ached incomparably, as she had been busy taking care of and comforting Dmo Xian by his bedside. It was until the hour of the yin, which was about 3 or 4 in the morning, when she laid down on the side of the bed, holding on to Dmo Xian's hand, and fell into a deep sleep. In a daze. She felt cold. But soon, his body seemed to be dragged up by something. She tried to open her eyes. However, the heaviness of her eyelids and the familiar scent of sandalwood made her unable to raise her guard. Warmth covered her. In an instant, her entire body felt cold. After an unknown period of time. When Yiqing Luo woke up, it was already bright outside. The piercing light made her raise her hand to rub her eyes. But when he moved, only then did he realize that he couldn't move his hand at all. It wasn't just the hands. Her entire body was wrapped in the embrace of a burning hot, muscular body. The elegant sandalwood fragrance lingered in the air. She blinked her charming eyes and raised her head in a daze, only to see the sleeping face that was as handsome as a god. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Yesterday, she had accompanied Dmo Xian back to his room and it was only until the wee hours before she fell asleep. She still remembered. He was just lying on the edge of the bed, pretending to be asleep. Why was it that at this moment, she was on the bed, and was even encircled in Dmo Xian's arms? When did her vigilance and perception become so weak? Looking at the still unconscious Dmo Xian. The image in her mind was of him looking at her with a cold and indifferent gaze. She stayed in Xian's arms. Wouldn't that make the centrifugal goo even more violent? Xian had fought against the centrifugal goo for so long. You must be very tired. He could not let him continue to waste his energy. Yiqing Luo's breathing tightened. She immediately and carefully removed the hands around her waist and was about to get up. However, the hand on her waist suddenly tightened its grip. She abruptly fell back onto the soft bed. Her little face bumped into the man's hard chest. Little Luo, the hoarse voice of the man who had just regained consciousness was transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. This cry. Suzy Ching Luo's body almost went soft. The man bent his waist slightly as he tightened his grip on the person in his arms. His warm breath sprayed onto her exposed skin. He even panted slightly, "Little Luo, don't move," as his words left his mouth. Chapter 2678. Yi Ching Luo's delicate body suddenly trembled. The familiar gentleness and the affectionate kiss from the man made her momentarily forget to struggle. Xian, she gasped and called out his name in disbelief. "Little Luo, I'm here." His low and hoarse voice murmured indistinctly. Yi Ching Luo's trembling intensified. Dmo Xian's voice at this moment had really. She was unable to control herself. Oh, Dmo Xian seemed to be following his instinct, trying to ease the discomfort in his body after he opened his eyes. His hand instinctively locked onto Yi Ching Luo's petite body. Until the man's large palm touched a certain spot. Yi Ching Luo, who was still in a daze, suddenly widened her eyes and panted, pushing away the man's pressing chest. Xian. You, calm down. The current Dmo Xian. Clearly, he had switched back to the love goo in his body. A pair of aggrieved eyes, like those of a large puppy, looked at her pitifully. That pair of peach blossom eyes were currently tinged with some sort of emotion. He looked exceptionally demonic. It was extremely enchanting. He could force a young girl from a good family to turn into a wolf in a matter of minutes. Yi Ching Luo swallowed a mouthful of saliva and forcibly suppressed the urge to be teased by the man. Xian, you've just woken up, I'll get someone to fetch water, you can take a bath. No. Dmo Xian's hoarse voice carried a hint of coquettishness. He covered Yi Ching Luo once again. His hands encircled her, as if his body could only feel a trace of comfort when he touched Yi Ching Luo's delicate body. However, this was not enough. It was far from enough. Xian. Yi Ching Luo increased her strength as she pushed him. In Dmo Xian's body, there was not only one kind of love goo poison. What if she couldn't control herself and was unable to extricate herself from Dmo Xian's charm? Dmo Xian was knocked down. After activating the venom of centrifugal force, wouldn't Dmo Xian suffer again? At this critical juncture, he absolutely had to hold on. Yi Ching Luo shut her eyes and hardened her heart, avoiding the temptation of Dmo Xian's beauty. Lil Luo, don't push me. I'm uncomfortable. Want Lil Luo, Dmo Xian's hoarse voice sounded aggrieved, as he kept on muttering softly. Yi Ching Luo forcefully pried his hand away. I'll feel better after the bath. When men woke up early in the morning, they would indeed have that kind of impulse. Especially like the current Dmo Xian, the only thing on his mind was her. Naturally, he would not be able to restrain himself. Lil Luo, The man's voice was even more aggrieved, like the low whine of a puppy. Yi Ching Luo's heart softened, but thinking of the centrifugal venom in his body, she could only harden her heart. Be good, I'll help you wash, you'll feel better after washing. Finishing her words, she did not wait for Dmo Xian to continue acting coquettishly. Yi Ching Luo didn't even want to look anymore. She murmured, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Stay calm. Calm down. At the same time, he shouted towards the outside, get a few buckets of cold water. Very quickly, Qiao Jin and Yan Xiao Yi carried several buckets of cold water. Seeing Yi Ching Luo's messy hair and messy clothes, he looked at her ambiguously, as though he had been through the same thing before. Yi Ching Luo's lips twitched as she blocked the entrance, not letting their line of sight into the room. Following that, she lifted a bucket of water, as her lips curled into a cold smile. Early in the morning and the two of you are here so quickly, could it be that Jin Z can't do it? Saying that, she even used her eyes, to glance at Xiao Jin. Who can't do it? Xiao Jin's eyes instantly widened, as he was so angry that he clenched his teeth to refute. But the person in front of him was a young lady. Chapter 2679. If that's the case, why are you still squatting in the corner of Xian and me so early in the morning? Yiqing Luo shot a glance at Xiao Jin, looking at Xiao Jin, who was so angry that his face was flushed red. She had been suppressing the feeling of not being able to pounce on a certain evildoer, and finally felt great. Yan Xiaoyi also blushed. No matter how much she blabbered out, she couldn't be like Yiqing Luo, putting such matters at the tip of her tongue. Yiqing Luo was really vengeful. Even teasing her would result in retaliation. Yan Xiaoyi expressed that they could no longer be friends happily. After a long while, he finally said, We were worried about you. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she listened to the man on the bed who had his mouth shut, but his breathing was getting heavier and heavier. He no longer had the mood to tease Yan Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin. He simply explained, he fought with the centrifugal goo for an entire night and sweated a lot. Now, he looks like he was poisoned by the love goo. I have to help him wipe his sweat. Just like this. Yan Xiaoyi squinted her beautiful eyes as she sized up the messy Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't answer but curled her lips into a brilliant smile. Not getting lost now, are you trying to sneak a peek at my Xian's tight abs? Yan Xiaoyi. How would she dare to imagine the overlord's abs? You're being too careless with your blackening. Xiao Jin widened his eyes. His eyes passed through Yiqing Luo and looked into the room. Then he looked at Yan Xiaoyi, who had a stiff expression. His mind was filled with the image of the overlord's outstanding charm. Xiao Jin's expression instantly darkened. He hooked Yan Xiaoyi with one arm and directly carried her in his arms, walking back. You want to see my abs? Let's go. Let's go back to the room, I'll let you see all you want. Yan Xiaoyi. F***CK. Slut Jean, are you a person who can be incited so easily? Sending off this pair of happy lovers, Yiqing Luo carried the cold water bucket by bucket into the room. Only then did he close the door and lock it. She placed the bathtub down and poured a bucket of water into it. On the other side of the bed, a heavy object fell to the ground with a thud. The bucket in Yiqing Luo's hand fell onto the ground. She looked back quickly. Sure enough, she saw Dmo Xian squatting beside the bed. There was a faint blush on that peerless and devilish face. His black hair was scattered over his shoulders, giving him a somewhat messy and demonic feeling. His purple robe hung loosely on his body. The waist seal was nowhere to be found. He struggled to get up from the ground. He moved. His purple robe fluttered. A large part of his chest was revealed. He could vaguely see the perfect mermaid lines. Yiqing Luo's heart pounded furiously. That restless feeling in his heart. He began to clamor for her sanity again. A monster. An absolute monster. Wasn't he afraid that she wouldn't be able to control herself and would pounce on him? Was it really okay to test her patience like this? Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and muttered, Emptiness is form is emptiness, as she strode towards Dmo Xian. Ah Xian, are you hurt anywhere? Lil Luo, Dmo Xian seemed to have finally sensed an aura that made him feel at ease, as a sliver of a smile surfaced on that thin red devilish face of Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo just got closer. Her wrist was grabbed by the man with great force. She fiercely rubbed into his arms. A warm and urgent kiss quickly fell on her body. Lil Luo, Don't leave me, I feel terrible. Dmo Xian was like a dog-type pet that had fallen out of favor, as he whimpered aggrievedly. Chapter 2680. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's face flushed red as she held on to Dmo Xian's hand. Let's go, you will feel better soon. Dmo Xian threw a tantrum and refused to leave. Yiqing Luo half coaxed and half dragged and finally brought Dmo Xian to the side of the bathtub. As for herself, during this process, he was only left with a thin layer of clothing. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and pointed to the bathtub. Ah Xian, go in, I'll help you bathe. The man who couldn't bear to leave Yiqing Luo's soft skin let out a few whimpers from his nose. Yiqing Luo coaxed in a low voice, be good, trust me, if you don't want to feel uncomfortable then go in. Dmo Xian unwillingly lifted his leg and stepped into the bathtub. Yiqing Luo immediately stretched out her hand and carelessly tore off the robe hanging on his body. His muscles were taut, and his body was so perfect that it made one's heart beat faster. Completely exposed in front of Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo felt that right now. Her eyes were absolutely radiating a wolf's light. She felt extremely wronged. This man clearly belonged to her. But it was right before their eyes. He could only watch, but he couldn't go overboard, it was too torturous. In order to suppress the burning flame in his heart, Yiqing Luo lifted another bucket of water and poured it onto Dmo Xian's body. Dmo Xian stood in the bathtub. Droplets of water slid down along his perfect mermaid line. Lil Luo, I still feel terrible. After Dmo Xian was splashed with water, he didn't feel any relief like what Yiqing Luo had imagined. On the contrary, it seemed to be on the rise. Yiqing Luo poured several buckets of cold water onto Dmo Xian's body. Then he pressed Dmo Xian down into the bathtub. He soaked in the cold water until it was almost hot. Dmo Xian still had no intention of easing up. If this went on, Dmo Xian might suffocate to death, right? Yiqing Luo lowered her head as she looked at her own hands and then at Dmo Xian's flush-red face. A thin layer of sweat rolled down from his forehead. He was poisoned by the love goo. He did not know how to control himself at all. Especially when he looked at Yiqing Luo. Other than hugging Yiqing Luo and kissing her, he followed his instincts. He couldn't think of anything. He could not hope for Dmo Xian to suppress himself. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and put her hand into the bathtub. Ah Xian, be good, don't move. By the time Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo walked out of the room, it was already 2 hours later. Everyone was still sitting at the stone tables and chairs in the courtyard. Yen Xiao Yi and Xiao Jin were not here. Miao Yi and the others saw the two of them coming out. Dmo Xian stared intently at Yiqing Luo, as though there was no room for anyone else in his eyes, which made everyone understand. The current Dmo Xian. It was Dmo Xian who had been poisoned by the love worm. The crowd heaved a sigh of relief. Yiqing Luo walked over. Xian's venom is too chaotic. If he continues to stay in the Qinhua clan, there will be too many mouths and it will be easy to be discovered. The others nodded in agreement. Yiqing Luo looked at Gue Wu. I'm going to stay at the Peach Blossom restaurant. Peach's place is extremely secretive, as long as the centrifugal venom doesn't cause any mischief, and calmly wait for a month. There should be no problem. Master Gue Wu, do you want to join us? Before Gue Wu could say anything, Zhou Mo, who was standing by the side, suddenly pounded the table. Of course I want to join you, little wild cat insists on following you, so of course I want to go. Gue Wu. Yiqing Luo nodded, then it settled. I'll go look for Sect Master Yin to bid farewell, then contact Peach to arrange a room for you. Gue Wu. No one asked for his opinion. Yiqing Luo had already held on to Dmo Xian's arm as they walked out of the courtyard. Chapter 2681. As Yiqing Luo walked, she reminded Dmo Xian in a low voice. reminding Dmo Xian to meet Yin Qinghao later. He only needed to maintain his aloofness as an overlord. Yin Qinghao was the patriarch of Qin Yu clan, so he was definitely smarter and sharper than the average person. Just by looking at Qin Yu clan's status in the northern continent, it was obvious. Especially when compared to when her scum father was still the patriarch of Three Springs sect. This further highlighted Yin Qinghao's intelligence. So Yi Qing Luo didn't dare to belittle Yin Qinghao. She must prevent Yin Qinghao from detecting Dmo Xian's abnormality. Looking at the nearer and nearer hospital admission, she took a look at Dmo Xian, who was staring at her in a daze, without shifting his gaze away. Yi Qing Luo sighed as she raised her hands and cupped Dmo Xian's face. She slowly tiptoed and got close to his ear. The servants and maids who were passing by saw this scene. They only felt that the scene of this golden couple displaying their affection in public was really beautiful. This society that only looked at faces. As long as they looked good. Even the public display of affection was so pleasing to the eye. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly in his ear. Looking at the man's white neck, her long and narrow eyes, flowing light flashed. "Ah Xian, obediently stand beside me, I don't let you speak, don't let you move, okay?" Dmo Xian's arms suddenly hugged her tightly in his arms. His body was well built and his muscles were firm and extremely hot. Yi Qing Luo's thoughts suddenly drifted to the scene of her bathing for Dmo Xian when she woke up today. Her cheeks blushed slightly. She raised her hand and was about to push away Dmo Xian's burning hot chest. The man's husky voice, with the taste of a puppy, rang softly, "I'm obedient, Lil Luo, wants to give me a reward." "All right." Yi Qing Luo smiled, her eyes curved as she tiptoed and touched his thin lips. But unexpectedly, the man whose eyes lit up when she kissed him, this time, after accepting her kiss, hugged her tightly again. After that, he looked at her seriously. "The reward I want is the reward for Lil Luo, helping me bathe today." Yi Qing Luo. It took her a lot of effort to erase those images. Now that he mentioned it again, was he doing it on purpose? Since when did her family's pet learn to be bad? "Lil Luo, help me bathe, it's very comfortable, I want more." Dmo Xian continued, his peach blossom eyes overflowing with resplendent radiance, like stars. This made Yi Qing Luo totally unable to open her mouth to say any words of rejection. Dmo Xian's waist bent slightly as he lowered his body. That cold, peerless face was magnified in Yi Qing Luo's pupils at such a close distance. The dense kisses fell on her face bit by bit. Accompanied by the man's hoarse voice, "If Lil Luo, doesn't give me a reward, I won't listen." Chapter 2682. What's the matter? Yi Qing Luo stopped in her tracks. Housekeeper Yin was all smiles. "Sovereign asked me to invite Miss Yi over to discuss something important." "Something important?" Yi Qing Luo raised her brows slightly. She glanced at Dmo Xian from the corner of her eyes. Dmo Xian's expression was indifferent, but his gaze towards her was gentle, as though he couldn't see housekeeper Yin's existence. She heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Dmo Xian maintained this look. No matter what Yin Qinghao wanted to discuss with her. She didn't need to worry that Yin Qinghao would detect Dmo Xian's abnormality. She smiled and pinched Dmo Xian's palm in the dark, smiling, "Then I'll have to trouble housekeeper Yin to lead the way." "Overlord please, Miss Yi please." Housekeeper Yin immediately stretched out his hand and respectfully welcomed the both of them as they walked into the main courtyard. After walking for about a quarter of an hour, Housekeeper Yin brought the both of them to a more secluded but extremely safe study room. "Sovereign is waiting for both of you inside." Housekeeper Yin bowed slightly. The room door opened and Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian walked in. The study room was extremely spacious and the surroundings were filled with bookshelves. On the bookshelves, there were all kinds of books neatly arranged. There were 2 office tables, one on the left and one on the right. Yin Qinghao was sitting at the right side of the table. Beside him was the suave Yin Yanxiu. Seeing the both of them entering, Yin Qinghao stood up and laughed heartily. "Overlord, Miss Yi, you're here. Come, have a seat, have a seat." Yi Qing Luo didn't stand on ceremony. She pulled Dmo Xian over and sat opposite Yin Qinghao. The smile on Yin Qinghao's face deepened as he poured a cup of tea for Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo as he smiled. "I'd not expected that when I mentioned Miss Yi earlier, Miss Yi would come over. What a coincidence." If there was anyone else around to see this scene, they would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop onto the ground. Since when did the overlord of Qin Yu clan personally pour tea for others? Even if the various continents' monarchs were here, or the other 3 continents' overlords, they wouldn't be able to drink the tea personally poured by Qin Yu clan's overlord. But Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian, in front of Yin Qinghao, were considered as juniors among juniors. Yet, Yin Qinghao had personally poured tea for her. He even had a smile on his face, as if he didn't have any grudges. In this world, only these 2 people could be treated like this by Yin Qinghao. "I also happen to want to discuss something with Sect Master Yin." Yi Qing Luo wasn't pretentious as her eyes curved slightly, looking as though she was in a good mood. "I wonder what's the reason why Sect Master Yin is looking for me." Yin Qinghao picked up the teacup and took a sip. His eyes were blurred by the steam from the tea and his expression could not be seen clearly. "This is what I promised the overlord that I would do after the birthday banquet." Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped. He shot a sideways glance at Dmo Xian. What deal did Dmo Xian and Yin Qinghao discuss in private previously? But the current Dmo Xian. He probably didn't remember what deal he had made with Yin Qinghao. Yi Qing Luo held Dmo Xian's hand tightly as she coughed lightly, making her own emotions and tone appear calm and tranquil. "Oh? What's so mysterious about it?" Yin Qinghao didn't say a word as he put down the teacup and fixed his gaze on Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo didn't know what the deal between the both of them was. She also didn't know what kind of response she should let Dmo Xian make. Just as she was thinking, suddenly, the man beside her moved slightly. Chapter 2683. "Just do as I said," said Yi Futian. His cold voice was noble and elegant, without any trace of emotions. Yin Qinghao immediately nodded his head and whispered to Yin Yanxiu, "Take good care of the overlord and Miss Yi. I'll be right back." "Yes, father." Yin Yanxiu bowed slightly. Yin Qinghao cupped his hands in greeting towards Dmo Xian's direction as he turned around and walked towards one of the bookshelves. He didn't avoid it. And in front of Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian, he directly opened the secret room of the bookshelf and walked in. Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze as she leaned her soft body into Dmo Xian's arms. Her hand, at a place where Yin Yanxiu couldn't see, pinched Dmo Xian's waist fiercely. The firm feeling was extremely good to touch. Yi Qing Luo loved the feeling of a man's body. It could be said that she couldn't bear to part with it. Yi Qing Luo raised her head slightly as her chin rested on his chest. That elegant face stared straight at Dmo Xian. As though she was puzzled, why would Dmo Xian still have those memories of his private transactions with Yin Qinghao? And it would be at the most opportune timing. Making the most opportune response. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped. His jet-black peach blossom eyes met her eyes. The man's eyes were filled with a gentle and loving smile. He bent his head and accurately kissed her on the lips. Like a deity's handsome face, the warm touch, the elegant sandalwood scent, made Yi Qing Luo dazed for a moment. When she regained her senses, after realizing the man's actions, her cheeks were stained with a faint shade of red. Yin Yanxiu was still watching by the side. He kissed her just like that. Didn't she want her face? But, the next moment, accompanied by the man's gentle kiss, the man's smiling voice floated over, I did well, I want a reward. Yi Qing Luo. So, he was all aiming for the reward. For the reward, he could actually use his brain to think of other things other than her. This kiss wasn't long, but it was enough to make Yi Qing Luo's face flushed red. Until Dmo Xian released Yi Qing Luo's lips. Yi Qing Luo then pushed Dmo Xian's chest away fiercely and shifted towards her own position. She sat upright, picked up the teacup in front of her, and held it with both hands, covering half of her face. She looked up and happened to see Yi Nianqiu's smiling expression. Her face turned even redder. One had to know that in Yi Nianqiu's eyes, she must have been the one who took the initiative to provoke Dmo Xian. She nestled beside Dmo Xian and raised her head to look at his posture. It really did look like he was asking for a kiss. Damn it! Could Yi Nianqiu have misunderstood something? Yi Qing Luo coughed violently. Miss Ye's relationship with Di Zun is really enviable. Yi Nianqiu saw Yi Qing Luo's predicament as he laughed softly and his tone was filled with envy. I hope that in future, I will also be able to meet such sincere feelings like Miss Yi and the Overlord. Yi Qing Luo coughed even more violently. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's blushing face, Yi Nianqiu didn't wish to see any embarrassing things happen, so he automatically shifted the topic. I wonder what Miss Yi is looking for father for. Yi Qing Luo was naturally happy to shift the topic as she gave a dry laugh. I'm here to bid farewell to Sect Master Yin. Farewell. Yi Nianqiu was stunned. If Qinghua sect has any unsatisfactory hospitality, will Miss Yi please point it out? Chapter 2684. Yi Nianqiu suddenly straightened his body. If Miss Yi feels that the Qinghua sect is too noisy, I can also ask my father to transfer all the forces that are staying here, young sect master Yin. Yi Qing Luo interrupted his words. As the young matriarch of Qinyu clan, there are some things that you should know what to say and what not to say. Yi Nianqiu's words were stuck in his throat. Indeed, as the young matriarch of the Qinghua sect, if he really made those powerhouses who were staying in the Qinghua sect leave because they wanted Yi Qing Luo to stay. This young sect master, it was a complete corruption of character. It would also ruin the Qinyu sect's reputation. Yi Nianqiu's face flushed red. It seemed that even he himself did not understand. At the instance when he heard Yi Qing Luo saying her farewells, he actually spoke out all the thoughts in his heart without thinking it through. Yi Qing Luo didn't want Yi Nianqiu to continue feeling awkward. We'll be leaving later. Of course, if Qinyu clan needs my help, as long as it's within my capabilities, I'll still be able to help. Yi Nianqiu nodded his head absent-mindedly and grunted. He knew that Yi Luo was smart. His actions just now. Yi Luo must have seen through his thoughts. In fact, he did have a good impression of Yi Luo. However, he also knew that there was a huge gap between him and Di Zun. He only wanted to be friends with Yi Qingqing, and that was enough. Unexpectedly, he still couldn't control his emotions. As the young sect master of the Qinyu sect, his words and actions represented the Qinyu sect. He should be trying his best to control his emotions. Because of this episode, the two of them didn't speak anymore. Yi Qing Luo was just about to go drink some tea. Suddenly, a hand reached out and gripped her teacup. Yi Qing Luo was startled and glanced sideways, only to see Dmo Xian putting on a straight face as he heavily placed the teacup in her hands onto the table. Following that, he grabbed Yi Qing Luo's wrist. He pulled hard. Yi Qing Luo fell into Dmo Xian's embrace. The man's hand circled her waist forcefully. The other hand also circled around, not giving Yi Qing Luo any chance to struggle. Ah, Xian! Yi Qing Luo called out to him softly, as she shot a sideways glance at Yin Yanxiu. The man lowered his head and bit her on the neck. He bit down hard. Yi Qing Luo frowned in pain. This scene caused Yin Yanxiu's gaze to wander around helplessly, not daring to look at them. Naturally, she missed out on Dmo Xian's current expression, which was like a dog-like pet who had been snatched away. "Ah, Xian!" Yi Qing Luo called out in a low voice as her little hand pushed against his chest. "Pain." I heard her cry out in pain. Dmo Xian then loosened the strength of his teeth. The man's voice was full of grievance and displeasure. He moved closer to her ear and said in a very low voice, "I don't like you talking to him." That he was referring to Yin Yanxiu. He was jealous. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she raised her hand to stroke his fur. "We're just discussing some matters. After we're done, we'll leave this place and won't have any more interactions with him." Dmo Xian was still unhappy as he clenched his fists and gave a childish snort in her ear. "Mine. And yours." Yi Qing Luo continued to stroke his fur. She liked this feeling of being so attached to by Dmo Xian. Stroking his fur. There was a sound coming from the bookshelf. Yin Qinghao's figure once again appeared in the study room. In his hand, there was an additional jade box which was emitting a white glow. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed slightly. Chapter 2685. That moonlight porcelain box was approximately the size of Yin Qinghao's palm. Yin Qinghao used such a rare and precious moonlight porcelain to carve the jade box. What was inside? What on earth was it? The thing in the moonlight porcelain box was absolutely very important. Yi Qing Luo stood up from Dmo Xian's arms. Yin Qinghao carefully carried the moonlight porcelain box with both hands as he returned to his seat and smiled. "I've made the overlord and Miss Yi wait for a long time." Yi Qing Luo stared at the moonlight porcelain box. "Sect Master Yin, this is." Yin Qinghao placed the thing on the table, and although he was smiling, but Yi Qing Luo, who was good at observing, how could she not tell? Yin Qinghao's face was filled with complicated and unwillingness. Apparently, he didn't want to take this thing out. But he had no choice but to take it out. After a long time, Yin Qinghao shut his eyes as though he had lost all his strength as he leaned against the back of the chair. "Miss Yi, this is my Qinghua sect's ancestral treasure. Black tortoise bead. Black tortoise bead." Hearing these three words, Yi Qing Luo abruptly stood up from Dmo Xian's arms. Her eyes widened as she stared at the moonlight porcelain box in disbelief. "You said. This is the black tortoise bead." This was one of the sacred beast beads, black tortoise bead. The sacred beast bead which was guarded by the four major sects. Qinyue's sect had been guarding the black tortoise bead for tens of thousands of years, passed down from generation to generation. Yin Qinghao's voice was slightly hoarse. "This thing, what use does it have? As the descendants of Qinyue's sect, we don't know." He paused as he raised his head and pushed the moonlight porcelain box towards Yi Qing Luo. "I know, Miss Yi needs the black tortoise bead." Yi Qing Luo looked at the jade box which was emitting fluorescent light as her breathing tightened slightly. She turned her head sideways as she looked at the man beside her. Yin Qinghao would automatically take out the black tortoise bead. It must be Dmo Xian's intention. What on earth did Dmo Xian offer in exchange, to actually make Yin Qinghao hand over his ancestral heirloom with both hands? "Miss Yi, this matter. Actually, it's not considered as a deal between me and the overlord." Yin Qinghao saw Yi Qing Luo's expression and guessed what she was thinking. Not a deal. If it wasn't a trade, how could Yin Qinghao take out his ancestral treasure? Yin Qinghao smiled and said, "Although His Majesty is known to be cruel, bloodthirsty, and ruthless, I know that His Majesty is not a person who kills innocent people. He's the strongest person in the Nirvana realm, and the person that everyone in the Nirvana realm yearns to be his disciple. He naturally has his reasons for asking me to hand the black tortoise orb to you." He paused again. The reluctance on his face gradually disappeared. Of course, I'm not giving you the black tortoise bead. Yin Qinghao replied, I'm only lending it to Miss Yi. After Miss Yi finishes using it, I'll return it to the Qinhua sect. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. She fixed her eyes on the moonlight porcelain box. His heart was in a mess. Black tortoise pearl, the first sacred beast pearl, had already appeared. If she accepted it, it meant that she had already chosen the second path to the upper realm. Gathering all the sacred beast pearls, this was the choice that Dmo Xian had made for her. Yi Qing Luo's gaze slowly shifted onto Dmo Xian. Ah, Xian, he hoped that she could go to the upper realm, hoping that she could improve herself as soon as possible, hoping that she could climb to the peak. The only way was to head to the upper realm as soon as possible. Then she could become stronger faster. Lil Luo, Chapter 2687. After all, he had been in power for many years. His reaction was much steadier than Yin Yanqiu's. As the sovereign of Qinhua sect, Yin Qinghao naturally hoped that Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo could continue to stay in Qinhua sect. After all, one was His Majesty, and the other was Master Guiwu. It was enough to raise the prestige of the Qinyu sect to the peak. However, Yin Qinghao was also aware of this. Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo continued to stay in the Qinhua clan. The other factions in the Qinhua sect would think of ways to harass them. Thinking of the Miao father and daughters prancing around these few days. It was also his dereliction of duty as the sect leader. Yin Qinghao naturally wouldn't stop them. He was in no position to ask her to stay. The Great Joy sect's ancestral treasures were all given away. Even if Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo weren't staying in the Qinhua sect. However, this feeling was still there. After exchanging some conventional greetings, Yi Qing Luo brought Dmo Xian and left the main courtyard. Yin Qinghao immediately stood up to see him off. After sending Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo off, Yin Qinghao heaved a sigh of relief as he turned his head back and looked at his son, who had remained silent all this while. Shou, that's not a woman you can think of. I know. Yin Yanqiu was in a daze as he spoke in a hoarse voice. She is Yi Qing Luo, the one who is hailed as the heroic goddess in the Western continent. I know. I am not worthy of her. It's not that I don't deserve you. Yin Qinghao patted his son on the shoulder. This was the first time he had seen his son, who had always been high-spirited, in such a dejected manner. He raised his eyes and looked at the backs of the two people who were leaving together. He slowly said, You can't control her. In this world, I'm afraid only His Majesty can truly walk side by side with her. I'm not stupid enough to fight with Di Zun for a woman. Yin Yanqiu took a deep breath. His chest felt a little stuffy, but he forced himself to stay awake. I'm just envious. Towards Yi Qing Luo, he indeed had a favorable impression. A lady like Yi Qing Luo who was unrestrained and had a unique charm. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a negative opinion of her from the very beginning. Basically, anyone who interacted with Yi Qing Luo would develop a favorable impression towards her. He knew his place. Having a good impression didn't mean that it had to continue developing. We can be friends. This was already the best ending for him. After they walked out of the main courtyard, Dmo Xian hugged Yi Qing Luo's petite figure as his brows were filled with smiles. Lil Luo, reward, reward, reward. His tone was cheerful. Yi Qing Luo seemed to be able to see the shaking tail behind Dmo Xian. It was becoming more and more like a canine pet. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. She kissed him on the lips happily and said, This is the deposit. Chapter 2688. She wanted to collect the 4 sacred beast pearls and didn't want to use her life as a joke. She didn't want the people she cared about to worry about her. She didn't want to contract the sacred beast pearls, and after it became her lifeline, it would be snatched away by others. Then, she would make herself stronger during the period of searching for the 4 sacred beast pearls. This was growth. Moreover, she already had the 7 white tiger sacred beast, scarlet flame vermilion bird sacred beast, and a half-soul state black tortoise sacred beast, as long as she found the azure dragon sacred beast. The 4 sacred beasts were all gathered. She also had a black tortoise pearl in her hands. As for the white tiger pearl, it should be easy for Xiaoyu to search for it in 3 Springs sect. As for the vermilion bird pearl, Gu Jingyu's face flashed past Yiqing Luo's mind. She shook her head. By then, there should be a way to make a trip to South Continent. They went to the Peach Blossom restaurant to inform Tao Zi. Yiqing Luo then pulled Dmo Xian back to Qinhua sect. They got the news that they were leaving. All the major forces rushed over in an attempt to persuade them to stay. But under the temptation of Yiqing Luo's huge reward, the overlord, who had turned into an overbearing aura, suppressed the surrounding people so that no one dared to get close to him. Even if it was Yin Qinghao who wanted to hold a banquet for them, his voice was trembling uncontrollably. Why did he feel that as compared to the time in the study? The overlord's aura was even more terrifying. After Yiqing Luo rejected him, the group of them left in a grandiose manner. After Miao Yi and Xian Gui left Qinhua sect, they expressed that they wanted to return to the Miao Stockade village to prepare for the Sacred Maiden selection next month. Yiqing Luo naturally had no objections. But Qi, who was standing by the side, was biting on Xian Gui's robe, not willing to let him leave. Xian Gui was confused by Qi's enthusiasm. In the end, Yiqing Luo went over and carried Qi back. Your magical beast seems to like Gui very much. Miao Yi looked at Xian Gui and Qi and couldn't help but laughed. Yiqing Luo nodded slightly as her hand unintentionally stroked Qi's little head. But her eyes were fixed on Xian Gui. A solemn look appeared in the depths of his eyes. Xian Gui sensed the look in her eyes and moved away from Miao Yi uncomfortably. Miao Yi patted Xian Gui lightly and looked at Yiqing Luo. What's wrong? I'm fine. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she concealed the deep meaning in her eyes. You and Xian Gui, wait for us at the Miao Stockade village, see you in a month's time. He watched Miao Yi and Xian Gui leave. Yiqing Luo's gloomy and unclear gaze had yet to be retracted. Howl! Qi, who was in his arms, suddenly let out a low, trembling whimper, calling back Yiqing Luo's senses. Lowering her eyes, she stroked Qi's little head gently. However, all he saw was Qi's fur standing on end, and her eyes filled with fear. Afraid? Qi. Yiqing Luo seemed to have thought of something as she turned her head around. Indeed, there was a man with a dark expression behind her, glaring at Mu Qi with a pair of vicious eyes. The jealousy on his face was undisguised. You're even jealous of a cat? Yiqing Luo looked at the man whose vinegar jar had been overturned in front of her. Her little hand comforted Qi and kept Qi into the pet space. Chapter 2689. Qi's childlike voice was still trembling. If you have the ability, go and stand in front of Master Dizun. If you can stay calm under Master Dizun's gaze for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, then Qi will lose. Oh! Qi Yan snorted coldly. Qi also scoffed. Why? You don't dare, do you? Don't laugh at me if you don't dare to. Qi Yan, I wouldn't dare. Would I, the mighty holy vermilion bird, be afraid of a human? It's not that this sacred beast doesn't dare, but this sacred beast disdains it. In the end, Qi Yan still did not dare. He was just trying to save face. Yiqing Luo withdrew her divine sense and raised her eyes to look at the gloomy man. This man, even if he was poisoned by the love goo, he had already forgotten everything else apart from her. Not only did others fear him, even holy beasts submitted to his aura. Yes, as expected of her man. Yiqing Luo raised her lips, opened her arms and threw herself into Dmo Xian's arms, her arms wrapped around his waist, her coquettish voice was sweet and seductive. "Ah Xian, let's go." The young lady's fragrance and gentleness made Dmo Xian's gloomy expression gradually soften. He wrapped an arm around the girl's waist and looked down. His unbound black hair cascaded down his back. As he lowered his head, a few strands of black hair fell on his face. People were coming and going on the streets. On the second floor around the corner, a woman who was about to put a glass of wine into her mouth happened to see this scene. The man was extraordinarily handsome, like a god, and could be said to be peerless in his generation. His eyes were as deep as ink. His facial features were so regular that no flaws could be found. Her rosy red lips were pursed, showing a kind of alienation and indifference. However, when the man looked at the girl in his arms, it was as if a 10,000-year-old iceberg had been melted by something. The wine glass in the woman's hand shattered with a crack. The woman's face was ferocious and filled with murderous intent. She glared fiercely at the figure, and the person in her arms. When his gaze landed on the young but extremely ordinary girl's face, he felt a chill run down his spine. The woman's jealousy and hatred burned like fire. Yiqing Luo was lying on top of Dmo Xian, trying to pacify the vinegar jar. Suddenly, he felt a strong murderous intent. She frowned and looked in the direction of the murderous aura. However, he didn't see anything. No. At the same time, the killing intent vanished. It was as if the murderous aura she sensed was just an illusion. Yiqing Luo was just about to push Dmo Xian away, wanting to head to the opposite pub to see what was going on. However, her waist was tightly hugged by the man's warm and thick palm. "Lil Luo, The canine pet's voice carried a hint of displeasure. He seemed to be annoyed that she wasn't paying attention to him even though she was trying to soothe him. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian's blazing black eyes. She blinked her eyes. In the end, she buried her head in his arms. Forget it. After all, this was the main street, and there were people coming and going. Even if she really went to the tavern, that guy with the murderous aura had probably left long ago. Later, he would ask Peach to go to the tavern and check which customers had been to the second floor. Pacifying her husband was the most important thing. He seemed to be extremely satisfied with Yiqing Luo's action. Dmo Xian's stiff face finally revealed a faint smile as his lips curled. Hey. The two of you. Are you leaving or not? When are you going to stop showing off your love? Yan Xiao Yi, who came late, tugged Xiao Jin's arm as she looked at them in disdain. Chapter 2690. Yan Xiao Yi. F***ck, can't we just have fun? Xiao Jin lowered his eyelids and saw that Yan Xiao Yi's expression was ugly, but he remained silent. He narrowed his eyes. What, you're not satisfied? Yan Xiao Yi. Mother ***, whose side are you on? To Xiao Jin, this godly teammate. Yiqing Luo gave a thumbs up as she laughed heartily and hooked onto Dmo Xian's arm, walking past Yan Xiao Yi and walking straight ahead. Yan Xiao Yi gritted her teeth and pinched Xiao Jin hard, glaring at him. Damn it, she didn't want to talk to this blockhead anymore. This commotion. Yiqing Luo then threw the murderous interlude to the back of her head. Peach was clear about Dmo Xian's current situation. So he arranged a room in the basement for Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. Gue Wu liked the peace and quiet, so he also stayed in the basement. As for the others, they stayed in the wing rooms of the Peach Blossom restaurant openly. Everyone knew. These representatives from the Heavenly Academy, although they were all very young. However, they were all very close to Yi Luo. They would stay at the Peach Blossom restaurant. Yi Luo must also be at the Peach Blossom restaurant. As long as Yi Luo was here, the Overlord must be there too. Master Gue Wu would definitely be there. Therefore, all the major forces would take the initiative to come to the Peach Blossom restaurant to clock in before it was time to eat. Rain or shine, no matter what. During this period of time, the business of the Peach Blossom restaurant was so hot that the tables were almost full. For the past few days, Peach had been grinning from ear to ear as she counted the taels of silver. However, 5 days passed in a row. The crowd only saw a few representatives from the Heavenly Academy and Zhou Mo who had been following beside Master Gue Wu. The ones he wanted to see. However, there was not a single shadow to be seen. And in these 5 days, Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian had always been in the basement. Because Dmo Xian's reason was indeed rather complicated. Of course, in these 5 days, Yiqing Luo also took the opportunity to enter the Azure Dew bracelet and cultivate. Before Yin Qinghao's birthday, Yiqing Luo had already successfully passed the 3rd floor of the Purgatory Tower and obtained the reward. Although, for now, all the rewards in the Purgatory Tower, she couldn't use it in front of the public. To prevent the people of the upper realm from discovering the origin of these secret techniques. However, any one of these secret skills could shake the entire Nirvana realm. After learning it, it would be a life-saving amulet. Right now, she was not strong enough and could not use it as she wished. But, she firmly believed. One day in the future, she would definitely be able to use these secret techniques without restraint. Previously, Yiqing Luo hadn't had the time to research on the 3rd story's reward. These few days, it was a good opportunity for him to study it. This was a study. Yiqing Luo expressed that this 3rd reward was simply tailor-made for her. The reward for the 3rd floor of the Purgatory Tower, 3rd grade Holy Fire. The legendary top-grade flame. According to Old Song's introduction, there were a total of 10 levels of a 3rd grade sacred fire. The 1st level of the Saint Fire and the 3rd level of the Saint Fire were precious fire seeds used to refine elixirs and tools. The success rate of apothecaries was low to begin with. He had the Divine Dragon Furnace and a 3rd grade sacred fire. Her success rate in concocting medicine was not even 100%. This was secondary. After the Holy Flame passed the 3rd level and reached the 4th level, just like Scarlet Flame. Using the Holy Flame as an attack weapon. Towards the 3rd story's reward, Yiqing Luo really liked it. Hence, Yiqing Luo continued to research on the 3rd grade sacred fire. As a result, Dmo Xian felt exceptionally dissatisfied. Chapter 2691. The young lady was wrapped in a robe as she laid down. The red robe was messy and the young lady looked as though she was lying on top of a burning flame. It set off that elegant face, like the blazing sun, dazzling and dazzling. Dmo Xian gazed at Yiqing Luo for a long time. Somewhat unwilling to be left out, he occasionally bent down and kissed her lips, then kissed her face. But, he didn't get any response from the young lady. His heart was getting more and more frustrated. Ever since they reached the basement. Other than the day when his Lil Luo gave him that reward, until now, Lil Luo had been in this unconscious state. Although Dmo Xian didn't have any memories other than Yiqing Luo. But his instincts were still there. Naturally he understood. Yiqing Luo's current unconscious state was actually entering a spiritual consciousness space, carrying out some kind of training. Dmo Xian was very unhappy. Dmo Xian felt aggrieved. He hoped that his Lil Luo could accompany him all the time. Talk to him and automatically give him rewards. But every time Lil Luo woke up, seeing Lil Luo's eyes sparkling, her face filled with joy, pulling him to talk about her improvement and growth. He was filled with grievances of being abandoned. He couldn't say it out. He liked to see Lil Luo smile. He liked to see Lil Luo's eyes sparkling. The rascal Dmo Xian's slender fingers played with the red belt on Yiqing Luo's waist. Just at this moment, the young lady's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. She turned her head slightly and met with Dmo Xian's peerless face. The familiar sandalwood scent made her feel at ease. She smiled brightly as she bumped into Dmo Xian's arms. This bump. The loose belt on her waist was tugged. A cool breeze seeped in from the opened red robe. Yiqing Luo's body, which was pouncing towards Dmo Xian, froze. Following that, she silently lowered her eyelids. On seeing her own red robe falling apart, revealing the tender-colored inner garment inside, Yiqing Luo's face suddenly turned red. She lifted her leg and kicked Dmo Xian off the bed. She immediately sat up straight and quickly tied the red robe properly. "Ah Xian, what are you doing?" Dmo Xian didn't have the slightest bit of precaution as he plopped down on the ground, his face still filled with bewilderment. A pair of inky peach blossom eyes looked at her without blinking. He looked like an innocent canine pet. The adorable Yiqing Luo couldn't hold it in for a moment, as she continued to berate Dmo Xian. She began to reflect. Had she been so engrossed in the third-grade holy fire that she had neglected her dog-type pet? Especially in that way. After giving her family's pet meat. With the addition of love goo, she was even more enticing to dog-type pets. It was inevitable that canine pets could not control themselves. Therefore, that was why he took advantage of the time when she went to the Azure Dew bracelet to cultivate the third-grade holy fire, to do such a thing. However, Yiqing Luo's self-reflection, in Dmo Xian's eyes. But it became, little Luo was angry. She was angry that he had disturbed her cultivation. Dmo Xian's pair of dazed peach blossom eyes blinked as he blinked. All of a sudden, he was depressed and pursed his thin lips. His head drooped and he looked like a little wife who was wronged but didn't dare to say anything. Ah Xian. Why did he suddenly release a low pressure for no rhyme or reason? Yiqing Luo slid down the bed and stretched out her hand to pull him. Are you hurt from the fall? Chapter 2692. That expression, which was like an abandoned puppy, made Yiqing Luo's heart shrink slightly. She instantly blamed herself. The man in front of her was the man she loved the most. For her, his body was implanted with love and centrifugal worm. His thoughts, his everything. Now it was only for her alone. She had many things to consider. She had many things to think about. But Dmo Xian only had her now. She was Dmo Xian's entire world. To what extent had she given Dmo Xian the cold shoulder, to make him who had transformed into an arrogant dog-type pet, to reveal such a careful expression? Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. So tight that her breathing was a little suffocating. Lil Luo, He called out again, his face was filled with grievance, with an indescribable heartache. Yiqing Luo's expression turned gentler. She squatted down and her little hand slowly wrapped around his big palm. Following that, she held his big palm and placed it by her lips. Her soft pink lips pressed on it. Her brows were filled with a sweet and gentle smile. How can I bear to be angry at Ah Xian? It's my fault. I shouldn't have disregarded your feelings and blindly researched on the third-grade sacred fire. Dmo Xian's handsome face, which was filled with grievance, upon hearing Yiqing Luo's voice, slowly dispersed, as though the dark clouds were pushed aside. His eyes shone slightly. Yiqing Luo seemed to be able to see the two drooping ears on his head slowly standing up. Yiqing Luo let go of his hand and turned to hold his face, placing her forehead against his. I love Ah Xian so much, how could I possibly be angry at Ah Xian, so. Ah Xian, don't be angry at me, alright? Ah Xian. The young lady's voice was intentionally trying to curry favor with him. Like a feather, it floated into Dmo Xian's heart. His eyes were filled with smiles as his face once again revealed a loyal dog-like smile as he suddenly opened his arms, encircling Yiqing Luo's slender waist. Lil Luo, I want a kiss. He had always used practical actions to express his emotions. His words had just landed. Yiqing Luo's body leaned backward slightly. But the man's arm protected the back of her head. Until her body was pressed against the side of the bed. He then leaned down and kissed her on the lips. Bang! The door was pushed open and Tao Zi strolled in. Qing Luo, eat. His voice stopped abruptly when he saw the situation in the room. Even though she was experienced and knowledgeable, and had done things like squatting on rooftops and peeking at live broadcasts, at this moment, she couldn't help but blush. Peach quickly closed her eyes, turned around, and walked out of the door. Well, I went to the wrong room. You guys continue. With that, she slammed the door shut and left in a hurry. The relationship between the Overlord and Qing Luo was really good. No matter when, they could always show off their love. Peach went directly to a private room on the second floor of the Peach Blossom restaurant through a secret passage. Pushing open the door, Yan Xiaoyi had already started eating. Behind the Peach, there wasn't any sign of Dmo Xian or Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi squinted her beautiful eyes and smiled teasingly. Why are you alone? Where are they? Peach rolled her eyes at her. You already know the answer. Yan Xiaoyi laughed even more teasingly. It's broad daylight and you can't control yourself. Young people need to control themselves. Temperance. Chapter 2693. The smile on Yan Xiaoyi's face instantly froze. She turned her head. As expected, she saw two figures walking in from the open door. Yiqing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms as a faint smile hung on her lips. If one took a closer look, one would be able to tell the deep meaning behind her smile. I didn't restrain myself. Xiao Jin scratched the back of his head as that ordinary-looking face was filled with curiosity. Not waiting for Yan Xiaoyi to open her mouth, Yiqing Luo very kindly took the initiative to remind her, if you were to control yourself, Xiaoyi would not have said that young people need to control themselves earlier. She's just shy and intentionally used this sentence to indirectly remind you to control yourself. Facing Yiqing Luo's serious nonsense, Xiao Jin expressed his utmost belief. After that, he put on a serious look, hugging Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder. He spoke in a low voice guiltily. Sorry Xiaoyi, I didn't consider your feelings. I will definitely restrain myself and not let you be too tired. Yan Xiaoyi. The usually astute Xiao Jin, why was it that when he was in front of Yiqing Luo, he was always swayed by one sentence from Yiqing Luo? He really was a blockhead. Yiqing Luo gave a low laugh as she pulled Dmo Xian to sit beside Yan Xiaoyi. Just as she sat down, her light laughing voice was transmitted into Yan Xiaoyi's ears. He will only turn into a blockhead when it comes to matters related to you. Yan Xiaoyi was struggling against Xiao Jin's hands as she paused slightly. Yan Xiaoyi swiftly turned her head sideways. She saw that the young lady who spoke earlier had already turned into a gentle and helpless little bird as she snuggled into Dmo Xian's arms, acting coquettishly as she said something. Xiaoyi, are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere? I have no prior experience. I will. Qiao Jin saw Yan Xiaoyi not saying a word and instantly panicked. Yan Xiaoyi immediately raised her hand and sealed Qiao Jin's mouth. Thinking back, this man seemed to really, as long as it was related to her. His intelligence was totally not on the line. This kind of private matter. How could he say it out directly in front of so many people? Didn't she want her face? But it was precisely because of Yiqing Luo's provocation. The others didn't continue to tease Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian about being late. The Peach Blossom restaurant's business had been booming in recent days. Even the dishes that Yiqing Luo and the others were eating had become much more plentiful. Yiqing Luo picked up her chopsticks and was about to pick up some food. Beside her ear, a man's voice filled with anticipation sounded, "Lil Luo, I want you to feed me." Yiqing Luo's chopsticks trembled and almost dropped on the table. She looked sideways at Dmo Xian, and Dmo Xian's jet-black peach blossom eyes blinked as he looked at her attentively. His smile was filled with anticipation. "Earlier you said that you're in the wrong, so little Luo, wants to feed me, to please me." That gaze was focused on her, as if she was the only one in his mind. Yiqing Luo's heart instantly softened as she picked up the chopsticks, picked up a piece of tofu and blew on it until the tofu's temperature was acceptable before she brought the chopsticks to Dmo Xian's lips. The smile between Dmo Xian's brows was filled with satisfaction. He opened his mouth and ate the tofu that Yiqing Luo fed him. He ate contentedly. The more Yiqing Luo fed, the happier she was. Especially when she saw Dmo Xian's handsome face being stuffed till it was round, it was so adorable that her young lady's heart was about to burst. The surrounding crowd expressed that they hadn't even eaten their meal and were already stuffed to death by the dog food. Chapter 2694. After all, to be able to make the noble and elegant overlord like this. So adorable to the point of exploding. A rare occurrence in 100 years. Only this time. They naturally wouldn't make a sound to disturb him. Once the overlord was cured, they could use his dark history to threaten the overlord. Thinking about it, the future was infinitely beautiful. Yiqing Luo fed Dmo Xian a mouthful while feeding him. The curvature of her lips was still sweet. Yiqing Luo sent another chopstick to Dmo Xian's lips. No matter how fast she fed him, Dmo Xian would immediately open his mouth and stuff food into Yiqing Luo's mouth. No matter how hurriedly he ate. How cute he looked when he was being fed. But the man's natural elegance was still there. Dmo Xian had nothing in his mouth at this moment. Seeing Yiqing Luo's chopsticks coming over, he opened his mouth and bit it. Yiqing Luo couldn't keep her chopsticks as she looked up at him. She saw the man's peach blossom eyes overflowing with a teasing smile. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. "Ah Xian." Dmo Xian bit her chopsticks as his lips curled up in delight. But he refused to let go of her chopsticks. After a while, the surrounding people's eyes were filled with teasing smiles. Yiqing Luo realized that he was after all the overlord, so she couldn't continue to be so adorable. She stretched out her hand and pinched his face. "Be good, Ah Xian, let go first, everyone is watching." He smiled and loosened the chopsticks that he was clenching tightly. That pair of chopsticks was imprinted with a man's teeth mark. Yiqing Luo stared at him angrily as her little hand used force and pinched his face fiercely. Then, her fair cheeks turned slightly red. Yiqing Luo then gave a light humph. She was about to let go. But she saw Dmo Xian suddenly raised his hand and covered his face. And covered the hand that she placed on his face with his big palm. A piercing pain made Dmo Xian's heart feel a twitching pain. Suddenly, his mind was in a mess. It was as if a large snowflake had bloomed in front of him. Yiqing Luo, who was held by Dmo Xian, thought that he was going to act coquettishly again. But when she saw that pale face, Yiqing Luo's heart thumped fiercely. Immediately following that, Dmo Xian's smiling eyes gradually lost its radiance. In an instant, it was as if a deep pool had sunk into a deathly stillness. Xian. Yiqing Luo panicked and immediately placed her other hand on Dmo Xian's face, calling out his name. His hand had yet to come close. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew over. Paw! Yiqing Luo's hand was burning with pain. The chopsticks in his hand also fell to the ground. The people around didn't even have time to recover from the sudden change. Even Yiqing Luo was still in a daze. His wrist was suddenly tightened by an enormous force. She frowned in pain. Woman! What kind of person do you think I am? Do you think you can make me like you? The cold voice was devoid of any warmth. Yiqing Luo's delicate body trembled slightly. She fluttered her eyelashes and slowly looked up. Sure enough, he was met with a pair of eyes that had been gentle and affectionate just a second ago, but were now incomparably cold and detached. Familiar, yet strange. The centrifugal worm had taken effect. Yiqing Luo slightly pursed her pink lips, slightly turned her wrist and pulled her hand out. The expression on her face was very calm. The moment the young lady's soft arm was pulled out, Dmo Xian unconsciously tightened his fingers, as if he wanted to hold her tightly. Chapter 2695. His heart ached even more. Dmo Xian's consciousness became more and more blurry. He seemed to use all the strength in his body to retract his outstretched hand. He closed Mo's eyes. This wasn't a reaction he should have. This girl. Over and over again, he had used various means to get close to him. She touched him, teased him, and even shamelessly, kissed him forcefully. If it was any other woman, who would dare to be so presumptuous in front of him? He would have killed her long ago. But, why couldn't he do it? When facing her, there will always be the feeling of being unable to control one's emotions. What was going on? Overlord, you. The other people at the table also stood up. They creased their brows as they carefully called out to him, "You don't remember." Qing Luo. Do I need to remember her? Dmo Xian's voice turned gloomy as his face darkened. Peach shrank her neck. It's fine if you don't remember. Why are you so angry? If I say I don't remember, then I don't remember. Dmo Xian's gaze turned cold, like a sharp blade, shooting straight at Peach. Peach quickly shrunk behind the ghost warrior. Yiqing Luo quietly watched this scene in front of her. She knew it very well. It was Dmo Xian with the centrifugal venom acting up. He remembered everyone, but not him. Whether it was in the past, or everything that they had experienced together. In Dmo Xian's memories, there was only him alone. He remembered everyone in the devil class. He remembered everyone in the Three Springs sect. It was just that he did not remember her. However, he didn't remember, but she did. Even if it was Dmo Xian with the centrifugal worm acting up. She knew his habits like the back of her hand. For example now, the reason why Dmo Xian was so furious at the Peach. In the end, it was all because of her. Dmo Xian thought that Peach was reminding him that some time ago, because of the centrifugal venom, he had a rebellious mentality towards her, and wanted to torture and kill those people from the various powerhouses in Joy's sect. She kissed him forcibly. Dmo Xian did not want to remember this matter. He didn't want to remember that he had been molested and kissed by a woman. That was why he was so angry. Was he unable to accept being kissed by her? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly, revealing a sense of desolation. Her pink lips pursed slightly as she raised her charming eyes and fixed her gaze on Dmo Xian. The person who made you angry is me. Why do you have to take it out on an innocent person? You also know that you've offended this lord. When Dmo Xian heard her voice, his heart surged with an indescribable rage. Yiqing Luo raised her hand. On the back of her hand, the red mark left behind by Dmo Xian's slap was extremely clear and had yet to dissipate. I kissed you and you made a move on me. We don't owe each other anything. Ha! Dmo Xian narrowed his long and narrow peach blossom eyes, his eyes filled with murderous intent. As though he was ridiculing Yiqing Luo for overestimating herself. Towards Dmo Xian's invisible pressure, Yiqing Luo was totally fearless. She slowly curled up her lips and looked at him with a faint smile. The great overlord, who is said to be omnipotent, is afraid of the feelings of a little girl like me. This lord is afraid. Dmo Xian seemed to have heard something funny as his eyes turned cold. In this lord's eyes, you're just a woman with ulterior motives. Do you really think that relying on Ghost Marshal to protect you, you can strut around in front of this lord? Chapter 2696. Miao Yi wasn't here. She didn't know what method to use to wake Dmo Xian up. She still remembered the last time. It was all because of her kiss. Right now, she could only choose to use a kiss to awaken Dmo Xian's consciousness. Only by letting Dmo Xian fight with the centrifugal worm, would he be able to break free from it and wake up. Yiqing Luo understood Dmo Xian. Naturally she knew how to provoke him. And the most important prerequisite of this method was Dmo Xian's body that loved her. And the soul that loved her. Even if under the erosion of the centrifugal worm, Dmo Xian had forgotten who she was. And absolutely, could not bear to really kill her. What she relied on was Dmo Xian's love for her. Indeed, just as Yiqing Luo's voice fell, Dmo Xian's expression suddenly turned gloomy. His seemingly watery peach blossom eyes surfaced a dangerous cold glint. This woman really wouldn't shed a tear until she saw the coffin. Goading. His voice had just fallen when his body turned into an afterimage. No one could tell when he took action. His body was already standing in front of Yiqing Luo. Getting close, the man's elegant sandalwood scent had already seeped into her nose. Her long curly lashes fluttered, her pink lips curled slightly, between her brows, there was an overflowing allure. Why, don't dare. Her words fell. She groaned in pain. The man's slender fingers, without any tender feelings for the fairer sex, locked onto her lower jaw. He bowed his head. The peerless face, enlarged in her eyes. Yiqing Luo's lower jaw hurt, but her smile was still there, the corners of her lips even curled into an extremely shallow cold arc facing Dmo Xian's approaching face. She didn't close her eyes like an ordinary lady. Instead, she used this kind of enchanting ridiculing gaze, staring straight at him. Just when their lips were only a finger's distance apart, Yi Zichen's expression suddenly changed. Dmo Xian suddenly stopped. His brows creased, maintaining such a close distance, looking at her with cold eyes. The young lady refused to be outdone, fearless. This scene could be said to be extremely pleasing to the eyes. The man was handsome, the woman was beautiful, and both had a strong aura. Visually, it created a very different visual sensation. The two of them maintained this posture for about the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. The man's warm breath. It was as though Yiqing Luo's face was tainted with his unique scent. She narrowed her eyes. Suddenly, he leaned his head forward. His hand also grasped Dmo Xian's wrist. Following that, he exerted his strength and pressed Dmo Xian against the tightly shut door. Yiqing Luo's action. No one had expected this. even Dmo Xian. They were all stunned for a moment. But, not waiting for him to get angry. What greeted him was the unique fragrance of a young girl. That familiar softness fell directly on his lips. Dmo Xian's eyes darkened. This was the second time he had been forcefully kissed by this woman. The crowd at the side, what the F***ck. Qing Luo was just too domineering. Such a queen, she was so handsome that she had no friends. In this world, the only one who dared to forcefully kiss the overlord was probably Queen Qing Luo alone. Qing Luo had no time to care about everyone's inner world. She kissed the man's lips hard. Her soft body, pressed against him tightly. A hand held his wrist tightly. There really was a kind of the déjà vu of a man forcing a good woman. The more he kissed, the deeper Dmo Xian's eyes sunk. He wanted to push Qing Luo away. In fact, it was an easy thing to do. But when his eyes met with the young lady's pair of devilish and enchanting eyes. Chapter 2697. He let the girl do whatever she wanted in this position. It wasn't until the stabbing pain in his heart that his consciousness gradually became clear. Only then did he realize the situation he was in. His face darkened. With a flip of his hand, he grabbed the young girl's collar and pulled her away. The girl's soft and fragrant scent was a little further away from him. However, the restlessness in his heart caused his expression to darken. It was as if he would explode at any moment. You! Dmo Xian gritted his teeth, his peach blossom eyes overflowing with viciousness. Qing Luo turned her head over, her pink lips were still stained with a trace of glitter. She lifted her lips and smiled brightly. She even deliberately stuck out her pink tongue and licked her lips under Dmo Xian's gaze. The alluring look in her eyes became more and more obvious. Why? You don't like being kissed? It was an extremely seductive action. This caused Dmo Xian's heart to suddenly stop. It was as if something was surging towards the place 3 inches below. A trace of red light flashed across his eyes. This woman, he really needs to be taught a lesson. At this moment, Dmo Xian was completely unaware. His current thought was not to kill the woman in front of him. Instead, he wanted to press this woman under his body and ravage her mercilessly. Let her cry. Make her beg for mercy. Dmo Xian's eyes turned darker and redder. Qing Luo's expression remained unchanged as she stared at his face. Her brows were still that enchanting. She could clearly see the emotions in the man's eyes. She chuckled softly, and her devilish aura intensified. Taking the opportunity when Dmo Xian wasn't paying attention, she purposely leaned towards Dmo Xian's lips and once again kissed him. The fragrance was somewhat alluring. Dmo Xian was shocked by this action as he swiftly let go of Qing Luo's collar. His figure, at this moment, retreated to a distance of 10 steps away from Qing Luo. He looked as if he had been frightened by something. Qing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles. Overlord, are you shy? Dmo Xian's expression was so gloomy that it was terrifying. Especially after he heard Qing Luo's voice, his gaze turned extremely low. Qing Luo could feel that under his gaze, her entire body seemed to be enveloped in a chilly intent. His blood gradually became ice cold. However, she forced herself to hold on and suppress the chill in her heart. He maintained his smile. Scram! Icy cold words were spat out from Dmo Xian's mouth with great force. His whole body was tense, as if he was suppressing the anger in his heart. Scram! Qing Luo held back her smile as she murmured this word. Her brows rose as she smiled again. Overlord, you can't bear to kill me. Even if he had forgotten her. Those who had been corroded by the centrifugal goo would be estranged from her. Ultimately, Dmo Xian couldn't bear to kill her. She had made the right bet. Regardless of whether he was a canine pet. Or had he forgotten her now? They were all so arrogant. Do you really think I won't kill you? Dmo Xian couldn't suppress his emotions any longer, and with another flash, he appeared in front of Yiqing Luo, grabbing her wrist with one hand. The feeling in his hand. Soft and smooth. It was as if a bewitching fragrance was drifting over. She did not struggle. She maintained her enchanting smile and stared at him. His heart tightened and his eyes turned even colder. Suddenly, he pulled open the room door and grabbed Yiqing Luo's wrist, directly throwing her out. Yiqing Luo's body staggered a little. She steadied herself. He could hear a series of voices rising and falling in his ears. What's going on? Overlord threw Miss Yi out of the room. Could it be? Could it really be like what the rumors said, that Overlord has already disliked Miss Yi? Chapter 2698. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Her gaze swiftly swept across the surroundings. She saw that the originally deserted second floor was now filled with people. The one who surrounded the front looked somewhat familiar. Wasn't it those few forces from Qin Yu sect? Behind them, the second floor was filled to the brim, even those who lined up all the way to the stairs. There were other forces and quite a number of onlookers. There were at least 50 to 60 people in total. She frowned as she looked at Tao Zi, who was following closely behind. Tao Zi also shook her head blankly. These people apparently heard that Dmo Xian and Gue Wu were having a meal in this private room. So each and every one of them specially blocked the entrance. He wanted to see what the legendary Lord Overlord looked like. And also wanted to have some relations with the legendary Overlord. But who was the one who leaked this news? After Dmo Xian threw Yiqing Luo out of the private room, he then realized that there were so many people surrounding them. He frowned slightly as he recalled his earlier actions and subconsciously looked towards Yiqing Luo. He saw the young lady's face was slightly pale. A pair of charming eyes swept across the crowd. Facing those ridiculing her, extremely unbearable words. She seemed as though she didn't hear anything. So stubborn that it made one's heart ache. Suddenly, Dmo Xian's pupils shrank. Heartache. His heart ached for that frivolous young lady. Dmo Xian suppressed this thought and turned around to return to the private room. But from the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of a figure in the crowd. His expression congealed slightly. Suddenly his footsteps turned and walked directly towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The surrounding ridiculing Yiqing Luo stopped abruptly. Yiqing Luo heard the footsteps behind her and immediately shifted her gaze, from the surrounding customers, back to Dmo Xian. The man's thin lips were tightly pursed, the expression on his face was exceptionally grave. His footsteps were hurried, bringing along a gust of cold wind. Ah! Overlord took the initiative to walk towards Miss Yi again. Is he preparing to coax Miss Yi? From his expression, it doesn't seem like it. In the discussion, there were a few jealous voices. In my opinion, Overlord has long disliked Yi Luo. It's just that Yi Luo loves to pester you, and he doesn't want to give up his backer, the Overlord. Yi Luo must have heard that the Overlord was having a meal in the Peach Blossom restaurant, so he came here to pester the Overlord. That's why he was driven out by the Overlord. The distance between Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo was getting closer and closer. There were a few who were ridiculing Yiqing Luo earlier, but now felt a little timid. Why do I feel that? Overlord is going to look for Yi Luo to apologize. I reckon that she really wants to coax Yi Luo. He's heading in the direction of Yi Luo. These people's words made Yiqing Luo's slender brows crease slightly. Something was not right. The person Dmo Xian was looking for. Not her. Dmo Xian's vision was not on her at all. Moreover, his expression was so grave, she pursed her lips at the moment when Dmo Xian came over. She took the initiative to avoid his footsteps. Coincidentally, Dmo Xian brushed past her side. He had no intention of stopping. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian was walking towards. When his gaze landed on that figure, he felt a chill run down his spine. Her charming eyes faintly floated a trace of fluctuation. Dmo Xian didn't even turn his head back as he walked towards that direction. Look! I told you, the Overlord didn't even take a look at her. Why don't you take a look at that face of yours, and still trying to seduce the Overlord? Pooey. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.